imagine, if you will, like you're tasked with building a 5-star luxury pop-up restaurant from scratch.
Right. And you have, what, maybe a few days to pull it off?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's not just a restaurant. You also have to construct this high-end nightclub.
Oh, complete with, full audio-visual rigging and specialized lighting.
Yeah. And then layer a Broadway-level theatrical production right on top of that. Plus, coordinate a totally secure, synchronized transportation fleet.
Which is honestly a logistical nightmare all on its own.
It is.
Yeah.
And you have to build all of this, and it has to run flawlessly for exactly 8 hours.
Right, with absolutely zero downtime allowed.
Zero, because if a single thing goes wrong, like, I don't know, if the lighting rig draws too much power and blows a fuse.
Or the cold chain logistics for the seafood breakdown.
Yeah, or the music cuts out during some crucial emotional transition. If any of that happens, you don't just take a financial hit.
No, you completely ruin someone's core lifelong memory.
Right. So I'm your host, and joined by our resident expert, we are diving into all of this today. Okay, let's unpack this.
It's great to be here. And, you are essentially building a temporary corporation with a lifespan of a single day.
A temporary corporation. I love that framing.
Yeah, and operating a corporation with zero margin for error, well, it requires an operational playbook that most people outside of, like, Fortune 500 logistics teams would find completely overwhelming.
Oh, totally.
The stakes are impossibly high because you're dealing with all this emotional volatility layered directly on top of a massive financial investment.
Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive. Because usually when we think about planning massive, high-stakes events, specifically, the multi-billion-dollar industry of luxury hotel and resort weddings.
We get entirely distracted by the aesthetic.
Exactly. We think about the tulle, the frosting, the floral arrangement.
The pretty stuff.
Right. But the reality is, beneath all that velvet and champagne, there is a hardcore, high-stakes supply chain. It's project management on steroids.
It really is.
So our mission today is to look under the hood of that machine. We're drawing our insights from a really comprehensive guide called Luxury Hotel and Resort Preferred Vendor Programs Explained, a complete wedding planning guide.
Which is a fantastic resource.
It really is. We're going to unpack this highly curated, often super frustrating ecosystem of preferred vendor programs.
And crucially, we're going to explore how to actually master the business and logistics of event planning using the Weddizer platform.
Yes, not using it as a mood board, but as a literal enterprise-level command center.
Which is an incredibly powerful lens to apply here. I mean, if we connect this to the bigger picture, understanding the mechanics of these luxury events teaches you so much.
Like how they're structured, how the contracts can totally trap you.
Exactly, and how the supply chains are managed. It's basically a masterclass in risk mitigation and complex stakeholder etiquette that applies far beyond a hotel ballroom.
You are learning how to build systems that guarantee success when failure is simply not an option for you. So let's start with the absolute engine of these luxury events, which is the preferred vendor program.
Ah, yes, the infamous list.
The list. We're talking about that heavily guarded list of caterers, photographers, decor specialists, and lighting techs that a luxury venue maintains and fiercely defends.
They do not budge on it easily.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
And when I was looking into how these venues enforce these lists, this analogy immediately popped into my head. Yeah, it feels exactly like a smartphone's walled garden. Like, think about Apple's App Store.
Oh, that's a really good comparison.
Right, because they don't just let anyone throw an app onto your phone. They vet the code, they test it.
They make sure it's not going to completely crash your operating system.
Or drain your battery in 10 minutes. The venue is doing the exact same thing. They're saying you can use the vendors inside this garden because we guarantee they integrate perfectly with our physical building.
Even if that restricts you from bringing in outside, quote-unquote, software.
Exactly. So what is the actual underlying mechanism driving that walled garden?
Well, from the venue's perspective, it is pure liability management. Liability management. Okay. Yeah. In a luxury context, you'll see pre-vetted for high standards marketed as a benefit to the client. Right, like ensuring quality aesthetics. Right, they sell it as a hook for you. Exactly. But operationally, it is entirely about risk mitigation for the venue's own property, and frankly, it's premium insurance underwriters.
Interesting. So it was about protecting the house.
Precisely. Take the physical complexity of a heritage luxury hotel. You are dealing with highly specific, labyrinthine kitchen
Oh,
layouts.
sure. Weird hallways, old elevators.
Yes, you have strict fire codes, you have complex loading dock schedules that dictate the flow of the hotel's everyday operations.
Okay, wait, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Because I understand protecting the building, right? But if I'm dropping, say, 100 grand on a venue rental,
Which is very common.
right, and you're telling me I can't bring in my own specialized photographer or my own florist just because they don't know where the service elevator is.
That's the argument, yes.
That feels less like risk mitigation
Mm.
and way more like a shakedown. I mean, I am paying for a bespoke luxury experience, and my vision is being held hostage by a loading dock schedule.
I get that. It definitely feels like a shakedown until you examine the cascading failures that occur when a vendor lacks institutional memory.
Institutional memory. Okay, break that down for me.
Let's look at your florist example. Say you insist on an unvetted external floral company.
Okay, my guy has the best orchids.
Right, your guy. So he arrives with 3 massive box trucks of these rare orchids, but he doesn't know that the service elevator on the West Wing shuts down automatically at 9 p.m. for maintenance.
Oh, no.
Or even worse, he doesn't know that the loading dock can only accommodate 2 trucks at a time without blocking the hotel's daily food delivery for its other 3 restaurants.
Wait, so my florist is blocking the actual hotel's food supply?
Exactly. The external florist clogs the dock, the hotel's perishables literally spoil on the street. The floral installation is delayed by 4 hours. And then, because they're rushing, suddenly the florist decides to use a specific type of industrial adhesive to speed up the installation.
Let me guess. They stick it right onto the ballroom's historic 19th century mahogany pillars.
Yes, and when they take it down, it strips the finish right off.
Oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so they ruin the pillars, trigger a massive damage clause, and disrupt the entire hotel's ecosystem.
And honestly, that is a relatively minor disaster in this world.
Minor.
Oh, yeah. Consider an unvetted audiovisual team. They bring in rogue subwoofers and custom lighting rigs.
Right.
They draw a massive uncalculated electrical load, and they blow the grid for the entire floor.
While there's like a corporate summit happening down
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Preferred vendors have that institutional memory. They know the exact dimensions of the freight doors. They know which circuits can handle what voltage.
They know the acoustics of the room.
Yes. The hotel uses these mandatory lists to insulate its own daily operations from the chaos of your temporary one-day corporation. Familiarity prevents catastrophic day of failures.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So it's not just about pretty flowers, it is literally about infrastructure compatibility.
Precisely. You're paying for a vendor whose software is natively written for the hotel's hardware.
Natively written. I love that. And, you know, there's also the element of curating the noise.
What do you mean by that?
Well, in a saturated market, if you have endless options, you can suffer from total paralysis of choice.
Oh, absolutely. Decision fatigue is a real threat.
Right. So the walled garden forces constraints upon you, which can actually be a massive time saver for the person planning all this.
Constraint is a crucial tool in high-level project management. When you're operating in a luxury space, you are paying the venue to have already done the exhausting data-heavy filtering for you.
You're paying them to eliminate the unreliable options.
Exactly. The venue implicitly puts its own 5-star brand reputation on the line by endorsing these partners. And furthermore, this creates a deeply entrenched symbiotic economic model.
Okay, follow the money. How does that work?
Well, the vendors who secure a spot on that exclusive list, they are guaranteed a steady pipeline of high-budget clients, right?
Sure, they have a monopoly on that venue.
Which allows them to offer exclusive, bundled services to the venue's clients at a totally different scale than they could for just a one-off gig.
Oh, I see. Economies of scale.
Exactly.
So they can bulk buy materials, or they can just maintain dedicated inventory specifically for that hotel.
Which theoretically maintains the premium quality while creating financial incentives for everyone involved.
Right, but here is where the friction gets super intense. Because efficiency and liability control, they often completely sabotage absolute freedom.
They are entirely at odds.
Right. The double-edged sword of the walled garden is that you, the client, lose leverage.
You lose almost all of it.
We are seeing strict contract restrictions where venues make vendor usage absolutely mandatory, like no exceptions whatsoever.
It's becoming the industry standard.
So how does a planner or someone managing this event actually win a negotiation when the venue holds all the cards?
Well, the reality is you win the negotiation before the ink dries.
Before you sign,
Yes. The fundamental mistake people make when organizing these massive undertakings is treating the venue contract as a formality,
rather than what it is.
which is a highly contested boundary line. When a venue mandates vendor usage, they are protecting their property. Yes, as we
I
discussed.
mean, the elevators and the mahogany.
But they are also protecting their profit margins. They often get commissions and kickbacks from those preferred vendors.
Oh, of course.
Mandatory vendor usage is essentially a protective moat. So your leverage exists entirely in the window before you sign that contract.
So it's the ultimate read the fine print defensive strategy.
It has to be.
Because the second you sign, you are locked into their ecosystem.
Yeah.
And whatever premium they decide to charge for their mandatory lighting tech, you just have to pay it.
Precisely why adopting a totally forensic approach to the initial contract is non-negotiable. You have to ask aggressively pointed questions.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay. Hidden labor costs. An exclusive lighting package might outline the hardware, right? The uplighting, the pin spots.
Sure, the physical lamps.
But does the contract explicitly include the union labor required to actually operate that hardware for 8 hours?
Oh. Or is the technician billed at like an hourly premium of $150 an hour?
With double time after midnight, exactly. You have to know that up front.
Wow. And what about cancellation policies? Like if a preferred vendor goes bankrupt or simply fails to deliver, who holds the liability?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right. If I am forced to use the hotel's specific caterer and they just don't show up, does the hotel refund my entire event? Or do they just point to some force majeure clause and walk away?
That is the exact level of critical analysis required here. You must meticulously review the service details and the indemnification clauses.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. But let's address your earlier concern. The loss of bespoke creativity.
Yeah, the cookie cutter problem.
Right. The trap of the preferred vendor is that they execute events in that specific ballroom 50 weekends a year.
So they can do it blindfolded.
Yes. They possess immense operational competence, but that competence easily devolves into creative autopilot.
They're bored.
They will give you the exact same table layout, the exact same timeline, and the exact same lighting cues they gave the client last Saturday.
Because it's safe and efficient for them. It minimizes their risk.
Exactly.
So it really is the cookie cutter trap.
Yeah.
You're hiring them so they don't blow the electrical grid, but you have to actively manage them so they don't just hit copy-paste on your $100,000 event.
You have to push them.
So how do you actually disrupt their autopilot without ruining that operational efficiency?
It requires highly assertive, deeply documented communication of your vision. You do not just hand over a Pinterest mood board.
Right, you hand over a highly specific brief.
Exactly. You leverage their knowledge of the space. You say, I know you understand the acoustics of this room better than anyone, but we are completely abandoning your standard stage placement.
Oh, I like that approach.
Let's figure out how to safely rig this alternative layout.
Yeah.
You challenge their routine while fundamentally respecting their technical authority.
You make them problem solve.
Yes.
But doing that, like challenging contracts,
Yep.
forensically auditing hidden union labor costs across a dozen different vendors,
That's a lot.
and enforcing creative briefs,
Yeah.
that takes an insane amount of processing power. Like human memory and a shared Google Doc are completely insufficient for this level of logistical cross-referencing.
They will fail you.
You need a centralized command center to route all of this data. Which brings us to the operational playbook we mentioned, the Weddizer platform.
Taking a complex systems approach is literally the only way to survive this kind of logistical load.
And here's what fascinates me about Weddizer. When you look at how it's structurally designed to handle the business side of event planning,
Yeah, it's really robust.
it's not a lifestyle magazine. It is basically a high-end enterprise CRM, a customer relationship management system, but built specifically to manage the volatile variables of luxury events.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
You are calculating supply chains. You are coordinating massive transportation fleets.
You are balancing dynamic budgets.
Yes. And you are tracking hundreds of highly emotional stakeholders.
The term cognitive load is critical here. The sheer volume of concurrent micro-decisions required to execute a large-scale event is just staggering.
It's paralyzing.
Imagine the computational nightmare of cross-referencing a venue's strict capacity limits with a preferred catering list's tiered pricing structures.
While simultaneously building a transportation schedule that aligns with commercial flight arrivals for 300 out-of-town guests.
Exactly. It's too many variables for a human brain to hold at once.
Right. And then, say, a rainstorm hits your beachfront resort on the morning of the event. Suddenly, the entire algorithm has to recalculate.
Everything changes in an instant.
You have to pivot those 300 guests to the indoor ballroom.
All right.
But wait, the ballroom is currently hosting a corporate retreat that ends at 4 p.m.
And your event starts at 5.
Exactly. You have exactly 60 minutes to execute a room flip that normally takes 4 hours.
So how do you survive that 60-minute window? You don't do it by panicking.
Yeah.
You do it with data. You use a centralized hub to instantly ascertain how many extra hands your preferred caterer has on standby.
You check what the alternate load-in route is for the indoor space.
Yes, and you use the CRM's mass communication tools to seamlessly reroute your 300 guests without inciting a mass panic.
You outsource the crisis math to the software.
That's exactly it.
Weddizer's smart filtering and comparison tools allow a planner to move entirely away from emotional, overwhelmed guessing.
Which is where mistakes happen.
Right. You transition to data-driven routing. If you enter a hard budget ceiling and a non-negotiable capacity requirement, the platform actively eliminates the noise.
It strips away the fantasy.
And it shows you the cold, mathematical realities of your operational choices.
Centralizing the data is the core tenet of modern project management. When all vendor communications, contract revisions, and dynamic timelines are routed through a single source of truth, you eliminate the catastrophic anxiety of decentralized information.
Because you're no longer digging through, like, random text messages trying to verify things.
Right. Trying to see if the caterer confirmed receipt of the severe peanut allergy addendum for table 4.
The system verifies it for you.
Exactly. By utilizing professional-grade, business-oriented tools for personal events, you drastically reduce the administrative friction.
The planner is liberated from the spreadsheet.
Yes, which allows them to actually focus on enforcing that bespoke creative vision we discussed earlier.
I love that framing. You automate the logistics so you can fiercely guard the art.
Well said.
But, as incredibly robust as an enterprise CRM is at tracking union labor hours and loading dog clearances,
There's always a catch.
there is. We know that the most volatile, destructive variables in any high-stakes event aren't the caterers or the lighting rigs.
No, the variables with the highest potential for catastrophic failure are always human.
Always. The
Oh.
guests.
Oh.
The family dynamics.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I found it absolutely brilliant that the Weddizer ecosystem doesn't just stop at logistics.
It goes much deeper.
It does. It has a massive, highly specific guidance section focused entirely on relationship and social etiquette, especially in their article section.
Yes, the articles are crucial.
It explicitly tackles the mechanics of managing family expectations, handling bloated guest lists, and navigating really complex cultural traditions based on specific niches.
Which is, frankly, the most critical element of this entire discussion.
Really, more than the contracts.
Absolutely, because you can execute the supply chain perfectly, but if you fail at stakeholder management, the project is a failure. Yes. In a corporate environment, stakeholder management is a recognized formal discipline. We apply specific frameworks to balance the competing interests of the board, the investors, and the executive.
Right.
Applying that exact same rigor to a family event is not just helpful, it is mandatory.
Stakeholder management sounds incredibly cold and corporate for a wedding, but it really is the most accurate description possible.
It strips away the sentimentality so you can actually solve the problems.
Because in a luxury event, you have multiple deeply invested factions.
You do.
You have the couple.
Yeah.
You have the parents, who are frequently the primary financial stakeholders, and they often treat their massive investment as leverage.
Always. I'm paying for it, so I gotta say.
Right. You have extended family factions bringing literally decades of unresolved politics to the table.
And you have social circles with their own intricate, fragile hierarchies.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a luxury experience is entirely dependent on harmony.
It does not matter if you have secured a Michelin star chef and the most exclusive walled garden venue on the planet.
If people are miserable, it's ruined.
If two distinct family factions are having a visceral, screaming argument in the lobby over the seating chart hierarchy, the luxury illusion shatters instantly.
The event becomes a disaster.
Right. The objective, then, is to engineer harmony through structural boundaries.
Engineer harmony.
Oh.
Okay, so how do you actually do that?
Right.
Like, how does a planner or the couple themselves use an article from Weddizer's guidance section to diffuse a tactical nuclear scenario.
It's all about psychological leverage.
Give me a scenario. Let's say my father-in-law is a primary financial stakeholder,
Okay, very common.
and he is absolutely demanding that we invite 50 of his business associates, which completely blows our capacity limit and ruins the intimate vibe we want.
A classic conflict.
Right. How does a website fix a battle of wills like that?
By utilizing the psychological concept of triangulation in conflict resolution.
Triangulate.
Yes. When you are deeply embedded in a diet of conflict, meaning a direct one-on-one battle of wills with your father-in-law.
Yeah, it gets personal fast.
Exactly. Telling him no directly feels like a direct personal rejection of his importance. The conflict loops endlessly because it is entirely fueled by subjective emotion and ego.
So you need to break that loop.
You need a third point of reference to break the diet.
You need an external authority to take the heat.
Exactly. You leverage the expert articles and establish etiquette guides within the Weddizer platform as your objective third-party mediator.
Oh, I see.
You don't say, I don't want your business partners there.
Because that's an attack.
Right. You say, we would love to accommodate them, but according to the established industry standards for this specific venue capacity and the per-head service ratio recommended by Weddizer's logistics experts, adding 50 guests will critically compromise the quality of service for everyone.
Wow. You weaponize the algorithm.
You do.
You point to Weddizer as the quote-unquote industry standard, and you just blame the system.
It completely removes the personal sting.
It's no longer a rejection of him or his friends. It's just cold, hard operational protocol.
It is the strategic deployment of an invisible HR department.
An invisible HR department. That is so good.
You use the platform's established authority to justify necessary, highly unpopular decisions. It shifts the entire battleground.
You move the conversation away from subjective feelings and injured pride.
And you anchor it firmly in objective event protocols. This is how you maintain emotional equilibrium among highly volatile stakeholders.
That is genuinely a masterclass in boardroom dynamics applied to family politics.
It's the only way to survive the planning process.
So Weddizer handles the cold, hard data filtering to optimize the supply chain.
Yes.
And simultaneously, through its articles and guides, it provides the psychological frameworks and diplomatic talking points to manage the stakeholder.
Correct.
Old Garden is navigated, the contracts are optimized, the emotional piece is kept.
And then you can breathe.
Right. Now, and only now, do you actually get to focus on what these modern luxury experiences actually look like.
The aesthetic execution.
But here's the catch. What luxury actually looks like is undergoing a massive seismic shift right now.
Oh, the industry is facing an absolute existential pivot. The defining trends reshaping resorts and venues right now represent a complete departure from the historical baseline.
We're seeing 4 major movements in the source material. First, destination weddings that are pushing further and further into remote, exotic environments.
Right, off the grid.
Second, eco-friendly celebrations that demand rigorous, verifiable sustainability.
Zero waste, carbon neutral.
Third, personalized experiences focused on highly interactive, completely bespoke themes.
No more cookie cutter.
And fourth, intimate gatherings that slash guest counts to focus on hyper-meaningful interactions.
Analyzing the underlying philosophy of those 4 trends reveals a fascinating pattern.
What's the pattern?
Well, for decades, the definition of luxury in this space was entirely synonymous with excess.
More is more.
Exactly. It was the massive ballroom, 500 guests, towering ice sculptures, sheer opulent scale. The entire goal was to demonstrate resource abundance.
The Gatsby model. Just overwhelming wealth.
Yes. But these new trends point to a complete reversal of that model. Luxury is no longer defined by sheer scale.
What is it defined by now?
The new status symbol is extreme intentionality. It is defined by a radical personalization having exactly what you want, crafted specifically for you.
Right, the bespoke element.
An ethical alignment, which we see in the massive demand for verifiable, eco-friendly practices. Modern luxury is about frictionless alignment with personal values, even in the most remote locations.
Okay, but wait. This raises a massive, glaring tension.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
We just spent 20 minutes dissecting the mechanics of the preferred vendor program.
The walled garden.
The rigid walled garden built entirely around standardization, liability protection, and operational repetition. If the ultimate modern luxury is a highly customized, hyper-personalized, zero-waste event, how does a walled garden survive?
It's a huge problem.
Right. If I want a locally sourced, fully audited vegan feast with zero single-use plastics, and the hotel's mandatory preferred caterer only has the supply chain for standard prime rib and chicken, does the whole system just break?
That is the exact friction point currently tearing the industry apart.
I knew it.
You have correctly identified the fundamental structural contradiction. The traditional walled garden was architected for consistency, volume, and liability protection.
Keep it safe, keep it predictable.
But the modern luxury consumer demands bespoke, value-driven execution. These two operational models are inherently hostile to one another.
So what gives? Do these massive luxury venues just lose the client, or are they forced to dismantle the walls?
They are being forced into rapid adaptation. Venues, and by extension, the algorithms powering platforms like Weddizer, have to fundamentally rewrite their vetting criteria.
How so?
Well, a preferred list can no longer simply consist of the vendors who know how to navigate the service elevator. The curation process must now aggressively onboard specialists.
Like niche experts.
They need vendors who have audited zero-carbon supply chains. They need specialists in hyper-niche cultural traditions.
They need culinary teams capable of executing bespoke dietary requirements at scale.
Precisely.
Meaning the App Store has to drastically open up its developer guidelines. They need more specialized apps and they need to vet them faster, or people will just stop buying the hardware.
That's exactly it. The walled gardens will not disappear because the underlying need for liability protection and risk mitigation remains. You still don't want someone blowing the electrical grid.
Right. The hotel still needs to protect its mahogany pillars.
But the walls must become permeable, and this is where platforms like Weddizer become the ultimate bridge.
Because they track the data.
Exactly. The platform's database must constantly evolve to track not just a vendor's price point, but their sustainability credential.
Their customization capabilities.
And their specialized expertise. It becomes the critical tool for a planner to find the specific venues whose preferred lists have actually modernized to meet these new non-negotiable demands.
Wow. Okay. This has been an incredibly illuminating journey into a world most people really only see from the outside.
It's a complex machine.
We started by dismantling the illusion of the preferred vendor program, revealing it not just as a curated list of talent, but as a rigid walled garden built on liability mitigation, union rules, and infrastructure protection.
Right.
We explored the absolute necessity of defensive contract negotiation, finding your leverage before you sign, and actively managing seasoned vendors to prevent creative autopilot.
And we established that attempting to manage this level of logistical and financial complexity with scattered spreadsheets is just a recipe for catastrophic failure.
Pure chaos.
We examine how utilizing a centralized enterprise-level hub like Weddizer transforms chaotic event planning into a structured, data-driven operation.
You route your variables through the system to calculate your contingencies, reducing the cognitive load so you can actually focus on execution.
And crucially, we looked at how Weddizer's guidance articles act as an invisible HR department.
I love that concept so much.
We took a masterclass in using triangulation to manage highly volatile stakeholders, weaponizing industry standards to diffuse family politics, and engineer emotional harmony.
It really is the ultimate exercise in operational control.
The overarching lesson here is a universal blueprint for high-stakes project management. Whether you are executing a six-figure destination event, managing a corporate merger, or simply trying to align competing factions in your own professional life, the mechanics are identical.
It all translates.
Vet your partners based on their operational reality. Read the fine print to understand where the liability actually lies. Centralize your data to eliminate administrative friction.
And never underestimate the raw, destructive power of unmanaged human relationships. Well, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to mull over, building on that tension we just exposed.
Okay.
If the absolute peak of modern luxury is now defined by hyper-personalization, zero-waste sustainability, and deeply intimate intentionality, how long can the traditional hospitality giants really rely on their protective moats?
It's a ticking clock.
Will these massive luxury venues be forced to entirely dismantle their walled gardens and assume greater operational risk just to stay relevant?
Or will a new breed of decentralized, hyper-flexible venues rise up to completely disrupt the market?
It's something to think about the next time you find yourself at a bespoke off-the-grid destination event, sipping a locally sourced cocktail, and you wonder just how many algorithms, contracts, and triangulated family arguments it took to get that glass into your hand.
It takes a village.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.